Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. We've got a great show for y'all tonight. 13 more days until the first NFL Sunday, 10 more days until the first NFL game, and 3 days until my Tennessee Volunteers take the field against Ball State to open the college football season, at least in the SEC side of things. I'm actually going to predict my Vols record. Yes, I do it every year. I know. Listen, the topics I do on my show primarily revolves around what people are talking about, what's in the media, what we're discussing as fans, social media, whatnot. This is the one segment of the year that nobody asked for, but dadgummit, I'm doing it anyway because I'm a Vols fan. So I'm going to talk about that, predict my Vols schedule later in the show. As well as we were going to talk about LeBron possibly playing in the NFL had he, 20 odd years ago decided to play football as opposed to basketball. That topic actually just got replaced with some pretty interesting news coming out of San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to stay a 49er. Okay, this came in about 30 minutes ago from Adam Schefter. I'll talk about that. As well as, you guys know I'm going to get to Aaron Rodgers. I'll save that for the second segment. And then the gap between Zion Williamson and John Morant in terms of how successful they've been the first 3 years of their career, as well as the team success, the gap isn't actually that wide. I'll discuss that later in the show. But first, let's talk about the greatest quarterback who ever lived. That is obviously Tom Brady, who I've been pretty consistent about this since I'd say probably around May, June. I remember talking about it in June. I may have talked about it in May, that I think this is going to be Tom Brady's final NFL season for a number of reasons that I'm sort of going to touch on today. But he suited up some preseason action against the Indianapolis Colts. It's pretty good. I think he went for 6 for 8. He was fine. Matt Ryan actually played for the Colts. You had two, franchise quarterbacks, in one case, the greatest to ever do it, suiting up in the last preseason game, which in 2022 is extremely rare. So, it was nice for a little bit to see those guys out there. And, thank God nobody got hurt, because that's really what we're, most concerned about above all when it comes to starters in the preseason, certainly quarterbacks. But Tom Brady, we know, was off for 11 days. We got reports saying that he was in the Bahamas, spending time with his family, his wife, his kids, because reportedly before he had come back from retirement, they had already scheduled this vacation. And so Tom Brady's like, hey, listen, I've already made a previous commitment. I'm going to go on this vacation, take some time away from football, take some time away from training camp. And some were cool with it. Some, were not. I'm of the mindset like, hey, man, listen, he's the greatest quarterback ever. I can understand why it wouldn't sit great with the play in the locker room. But at the same time, he's really the only guy that could get away with that. And we'd be like, it's fine. He's got 7 rings. He's still the best quarterback in football, in my view. And certainly if you don't hold that same opinion, he's certainly top 3, top 5 easily. But something that I've sort of beat the drum about that I don't think has been talked about enough in the media, and part of the reason I think this is going to be Tom's last year, I'm not sure the commitment level is there. Not that there's no commitment level, because Tom Brady commitment level, it's Michael Jordan level. It's Kobe Bryant. It's Tiger Woods. Like, the greats of the greats, the guys who are obsessed, somebody whose career is about to come to an end soon, and a big shout out, Serena Williams, that type of dedication. And I've said all offseason, I don't see that same fire in Tom Brady. Now, he's accomplished everything that's you could possibly accomplish. He's broken every major quarterback record. He's won the most Super Bowls easily. He's won more Super Bowls than any NFL franchise. Okay. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots both have 6 Super Bowl rings. Tom has 7. Okay. He's got, again, he's got the MVPs. The fact that he's only got 3 MVPs is a crime. It's an indictment on the award itself. But he's done it all. Okay. He's still, he was just voted by NFL players as the best player in all of football at the age of 45. Okay, so he has nothing left to prove. And so I think, and I've said this, I think with some of his businesses, you got the TB12 brand, you got the Brady brand, the clothing line that he's got. He's got the 80 for Brady movie coming out. He's got 199 productions, obviously named after him being the 199th pick in the 2000 NFL draft. He's got the big news. He's got the $30+ million per year deal with Fox to be their number 1 NFL analyst for their number 1 games every weekend, America's Game of the Week. So he's got a lot going on off the field, right? Not to mention his kids are getting older. We know his wife, obviously, uber successful. And so I've said certain things, certain words I've heard him use in interviews, satisfied, we'll see, stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. This doesn't feel like the same Tom Brady. And when he was asked about his 11-day absence from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after the Buccaneers preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts, he said, quote, he's asked why he took time off. He said, quote, everyone has different situations they're dealing with, and we all have unique challenges to our lives. I'm 45 years old, man. There's a lot of bleep going on, so you just have to try and figure out life the best you can. It's a continuous process. 1 foot is in, 1 foot is out. We know about the reports that have come through about how basically twice he's tried to join the Miami Dolphins, once in 2020, but we know about how the Dolphins have gotten in trouble with the tampering. And then last year, he and Sean Payton were going to team up. Brady was going to be a player/owner of the Miami Dolphins, but once the Brian Flores lawsuit came down, Brady didn't want to touch that franchise with a 10-foot pole. And we know some of the frustrations he's had in Tampa. Bruce Arians got fired. He's even since his first year in Tampa, right? For all his issues with New England, Tom would tell you behind closed doors, boy, they're a lot more buttoned up than Tampa. Okay. New England, for the longest time, they don't get penalized much. Practices run smooth. Tampa is a very laid back culture as opposed to that of Boston/New England. I mean, we know that. It's a thing about culture with the two cities. So when you have all of this going on, Tom has been frustrated at times with Tampa in only 3 years there as opposed to 20 in Foxborough. But this quote, and it's not a shot at Brady. Look, I get why he would sort of be a little bit worn down at this point in his career. But I will beat this drum again. I don't know if that same commitment that was there at the beginning is here now. Heck, that was there 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Tom Brady felt like he had something to prove, right? Yes, he'd won the 6 Super Bowl titles. Yes, he won the 3 MVPs. Yes, he'd won at the time, 4 Super Bowl MVPs. But he left in 2020 to go to Tampa. And the whole debate, okay, was it Brady who got the credit for the Patriots dynasty, or majority of the credit for the Patriots dynasty, or was it Belichick? Well, that question got answered definitively after the 2020 season. Belichick's Patriots was 7-9. Brady led the Bucs to the Super Bowl. And obviously they won over Kansas City. So that Brady felt like he had something to prove. I think he probably doesn't feel like he has something to prove at this stage. I think he understands his numerous endeavors off the field. Tom Brady is going to have a great retirement, considering all the stuff that he's got going on. And I'm telling you, I think the Fox deal changed everything. The fact that he's not going to make that much less, $30+ million a year, folks. He's making more than Romo. We thought Romo was like, oh, how could you possibly pay Tony Romo? Brady's getting more, okay? And I don't have an issue with it. Look, that's Tom Brady. You got to give him his money if you want him to come to your network. I'm sure other networks were bidding. Fox just, outbid the rest. But I think that changed a lot of things. Like, okay, listen, I enjoy watching film. With Tom, literally, those words came out of Tom's mouth 5 years ago on that Tom versus Time Facebook documentary. Remember, he said, I enjoy watching film. He's not play-by-play man, but as a lead analyst, yeah, he gets to do that. He gets to watch film of the two teams that he'll be broadcasting that week. He gets to interview the players, the star players for both teams. He gets to interview coaches, gets to pick their brain. I feel like it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out with Tom Brady. That doesn't mean I don't think he'll be good this year. I think Tom Brady's going to have a great year. Okay, Tampa's a 12-win team. Okay, it's not a great division. I kind of like New Orleans this year. Panthers going to be awful. Falcons going to be even worse. Okay, you got a tanking team in Atlanta and a team that seems to not really know they're in rebuilding in Carolina. Okay, so, and by the way, the NFC is not great. Okay, you've got, I've said, to me, there's 3 contenders in the NFC. Rams, Niners, Bucks. Stop it on Green Bay. I think Minnesota's going to win the division, but I do not see them as a true Super Bowl contender, and stop it on Dallas and Philly. I think there's 3 contenders in the NFC. Tampa, LA, San Francisco. So Tampa's going to be in the hunt. But I just wonder if that same hunger and that same fire is still there from a man who is without question the greatest player in league history. I think it is something that is worthy of being questioned. We're not questioning the greatness of Tom Brady. That's the lie. And I've heard some people say, well, hey, listen, he's used to dealing with distractions. This isn't a distraction. If you're likening this to the whole controversy with the Miami Dolphins, or even, remember we talked about last week with the whole, Dana White revealing that Brady and Gronk to Vegas almost happened. I don't think that's really hanging in Tom's mind right now. He understands his off-field endeavors, what's awaiting him on the other side of his NFL career. I think it's something to at least consider. So that is why, once again, I would be genuinely shocked if he plays in 2023. But we will see what happens. Again, I just, he's used words like satisfied in one interview. He was talking with Dan Patrick a few months ago, and he was using words like, we'll see. I don't see that same, Julian Edelman called it Psycho Tom. Some occasionally you could see that sort of seep through, especially once he got to Tampa, because he could sort of open up himself more to the media. And, since he wasn't under the restrictions of Belichick and the Patriot way, right? He kind of opened himself up more. We know about the shop interview where he was very candid about what ended up being Derek Carr. I'm not seeing that. And I think guys in Tampa aren't seeing that. They understand what that man is and what that man represents. But I think it's something to at least consider, where he's at mentally. But listen, we'll see Tampa in action. Really, the biggest concern for Tampa is that offensive line. It's falling apart, folks. Absolutely falling apart, because you got the retirement of Ali Marpet. Jensen is out possibly the season. Best case scenario, he comes back mid to late December. Best case scenario, if everything goes perfectly. And he still probably won't be 100%, right? You've got Tristan Wirfs dealing with injuries. Tom Brady's left tackle. You got other linemen dealing with it. One of their guards, I think, got hurt. Like, Tampa is really reeling at that offensive line spot, or in that unit. And the problem for the Bucs is they are playing some elite pass rushing teams. Okay, you're playing Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. You're playing the Cowboys with Micah Parsons. You're playing the Saints with all their pass rushers led by Cam Jordan. Okay, you've got who else they got in their schedule? They got the Rams with a guy who I personally thought should have been ranked over Tom Brady in the NFL's top 100, Aaron Donald, who's the best defensive player in football. Who else? They've got Green Bay's got a good pass rush, Preston Smith. So it's going to be a little bit, they play Kansas City with Chris Jones. It's going to be a little bit of survival for that Bucs offensive line. The good news is for Tom Brady, we know no quarterback, maybe in the history of the league, is better at getting the ball out of his hands quick. I remember a few years ago, the Patriots were playing a playoff game against the Chargers, and Joey Bosa, one of the elite pass rushers in the NFL, was getting really, really frustrated. He couldn't get to Tom Brady because it was, snap, first read, get the ball there. If it's not, second read, go there. Tom's better at that than anybody in football. And Joey was getting kind of frustrated. Like, I think he even told Tom, like, man, could you hold the ball a little longer so I can, have a chance to bring you to the ground? Well, Tom's going to have to probably quicken that release. And it's a good thing Tampa is about as loaded at receivers as any team in football. Again, if Julio Jones is your number 4, I understand Julio Jones is not the Atlanta version of himself. But if that's your number 4, you are in good hands. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, Julio Jones, Scotty Miller, I've always felt like was underrated as a slot receiver. You brought in Kyle Rudolph as a tight end. Tampa, especially defensively, right. Tampa brought in Carl Nassib, who's a good pass rush. They brought in Akeem Hicks, who is a great run stopper. Like, I felt like Tampa had a quietly good offseason. But we know the offensive line is like the AC. You only notice it when it's not working. So I think right off the bat, again, Tampa plays, is it 4? Tampa's first 4 games is all against very good pass rushes. Dallas, New Orleans, Green Bay, Kansas City. So I think it's something you'll have to keep your eye on if you're a Tampa Bay fan or if you're a Tom Brady fan like myself. And I'd love to see this man go out on top. It's only fitting that the greatest champion in the history of the NFL goes out with the Super Bowl ring. But I'm just not real sure the possibility or the probability of that happening, even in a weak NFC. Speaking of that weak NFC, and speaking of elite quarterbacks in the NFC, here we go again. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, who, oh man, you want to talk about playing victim. So Aaron Rodgers was on his good buddy Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm sure you all are very aware of Joe's pod. He makes $100 million at Spotify. I mean, for any podcaster like myself, it's kind of like the pinnacle, right? If you can make $100 million doing a podcast, hey, go get it. Go get your money, as I always say on this show, man. But Aaron was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about the whole vaccine controversy. We all know what happened, right? Aaron Rodgers got COVID it was either late October, I think it was early November, missed 10 days as opposed to the 7 that a vaccinated player would miss because he was unvaccinated. He missed 10 games, thus missing one of the Packers games against the Kansas City Chiefs, in which Jordan Love was terrible and the Packers lost. And so he was talking about that. And the thing that I sort of get a kick out of is that I don't remember even the whole vaccine controversy being a story for what? I mean, the last time people really made like Aaron Rodgers vaccine jokes was when the Packers lost to the 49ers in the playoffs, right? Because remember, I think somebody said that he was immunized from winning in the playoffs or winning home playoff games or something like that, or immunized from getting to the Super Bowl again. Like, that's really the last we've talked about it. But Aaron has to bring it back up to, be right back in the news again. And so he was talking about how, sort of in his view, the mischaracterization of the whole immunized thing. We know that they asked, just like the media was asking all the star players, especially the quarterbacks, hey, are you vaccinated? They asked Aaron Rodgers. He said, he's famously said, yeah, I've been immunized. And Aaron was talking about it on Joe Rogan's podcast. He said, quote, I'd been ready the entire time for this question and had thought about how I wanted to answer it. And I come to the conclusion, I'm going to say, quote, I've been immunized. And if there's a follow-up, then talk about my process. But thought there's a possibility that I may say I'm immunized. Maybe they understand what that means. Maybe they don't. Maybe they follow up. They didn't follow up. So then I go into the season, them thinking, some of them, that I was vaccinated. So I'll give Aaron Rodgers credit. At least he admitted to his lying. People don't get ticked off at Aaron Rodgers because he didn't get vaccinated. I mean, some do, but people aren't just crushing him for it. He's not the only star quarterback to not get vaccinated. There's another fellow superstar NFL quarterback who didn't. His name's Lamar Jackson. There's other starting quarterbacks in the NFL who didn't get the vaccine. Kirk Cousins, right? Carson Wentz. Difference with those three guys, Wentz, Cousins, and Lamar Jackson, they made the decision, not going to get vaccinated, okay? It's fine. The NFL's not making you, but there are certain protocols that if you don't get the vaccine, you have to adhere to. You have to wear a mask on the sideline and in team meetings, okay? They're more restrictive about when you go on the road, right? You can't go to, obviously restaurants, but any gatherings of 15 or more people, okay? You have to, when you do press conferences, it has to be via Zoom or just virtually. And Wentz, Cousins, and Lamar said, okay, we're going to do that. And you saw the games and they had their mask on the sideline, or when they were doing a press conference, it was virtual. Okay, so they understood the fact that, hey, listen, we're not going to get this. We understand the consequences that come with that. We're going to roll with it. So when Aaron Rodgers said, I'm immunized, which I don't even remember it happening at the time that happened, people didn't bring it up until he got COVID and the whole controversy started to come up, that he said, I'm immunized. He did not wear a mask on the sideline. He did in-person press conferences. So we automatically assumed, in fact, I remember saying on the show when he first got it, so he'll just be out a few days, but he'll be ready for the Kansas City game. Oh, no. No, he just broke the rules. And it was when it was found out he broke the rules, when he was fined and the Packers were fined for him breaking the rules, then he just said, well, the rules are done. Okay, I'm not sorry because the rules are done. Well, there's a lot of rules in society that you and I probably think are dumb. Still got to adhere to them. You know, and I remember, and people haven't talked about this enough. He even quoted the great Martin Luther King Jr. Actually misquoted Dr. King talking about, if rules don't make sense, you have a moral obligation not to follow the rules. Basically, comparing the NFL's COVID laws to segregation, but that's neither here nor there. But once again, as Aaron always does, not just with this, but issues with coaches, the organization, receivers, his family, his girlfriends, the whole bit. He's got to make a big scene out of it. He's got to let you know, as I talked about a couple weeks ago with the whole issue of him, blasting his receivers publicly to the media. Aaron Rodgers is the king of putting that bug in your ear, making sure, like, hey, when the fit hits the shan, as one said, just know that it was not my fault. It was the NFL's dumb rules, right? It wasn't that I broke the rules and got caught breaking the rules. It was that, the NFL just has bad rules. And so, what I also thought was funny in the interview, he was talking about, he didn't trust what was in COVID. He said that there was something in COVID, that the COVID vaccine that he was allergic to. He said that he had, done his research, blah, blah, blah. And he talked about how, he was talking about another unvaccinated athlete, Novak Djokovic, right? The tennis player. And how, we're the best athletes in the world. We're very careful about what we put in our body. Well, he's so careful, he puts ayahuasca in his body, which apparently makes you vomit on both sides, is what I read about it. And psychedelic drugs, talking about how they changed his life and they made him a better friend and teammate and lover. And he trusts that, though, right? He trusts ivermectin. He trusts all these alternate ways to treat COVID. Or he could just, if you don't want to get the vaccine, fine. Just be like the other quarterbacks, Cousins, Lamar, Wentz. Don't get it and follow the rules. That's simple. But no. The rules don't apply to me. Okay, I'm a 4-time MVP. I'm a Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP. I'm one of the greatest who's ever played this game. The rules do not apply to me. The all-powerful number 12, Aaron Rodgers. This has always been my issue with him. This is always, and this to me, it is yet another example of no self-awareness. I mean, really, this whole interview and the whole vaccine controversy as a whole, which happened a little less than a year ago, about 9 months ago, points to Aaron's biggest flaw. And that's that he's all about Aaron. He doesn't think about anybody else. This story was dead. Nobody was talking about this. Heck, not a whole lot of people even talking about COVID impacting the NFL season. Obviously, they talked about it in 2020 because, we still didn't have a vaccine. There was, obviously there was a lot more. There wasn't any fans in the stands for the majority of the stadiums. For the stadiums that did have fans in, it was, limited capacity. Even last year, not just with Aaron Rodgers, but with other stars contracting COVID, were they vaccinated, were they not? Like, it played a big, big factor. This year, not so much. Right? Nope. Nobody was talking about the Rodgers COVID situation. Nobody was really talking about how COVID's going to impact the season. And here he comes, stirring the pot. And he was talking about how it was a witch hunt. That they were going after the unvaccinated players and how they're trying to cancel me and all that. Brother, nobody's canceled you. Okay? Every other commercial break, when we're watching an NFL game, I see you with your, hippie, punk rock look with Jake from State Farm or with Patrick Mahomes on the State Farm commercials. You make a weekly 1-hour appearance on the Pat McAfee show. I see you there. And the Pat McAfee show has increased significantly in popularity, in part because of Aaron's appearances on that program. He's doing 30-minute interviews with ESPN where he's bashing his family and the Packers organization in the NFL. My issue with one of my issues, many with Aaron, is that he understands. I think he understands he is a polarizing figure. But if somebody understands, a well-known person, think of who everyone would think of, is polarizing and understands and is willing to roll with the punches, is willing to roll with the criticism that comes their way, okay, They've embraced it. They've embraced the quote-unquote, if you want to call it a villain role, whatever you want to call it. But they're willing to say, okay, people really don't like what I have to say. I don't care. Aaron is so sensitive, man. If people dare question what he says, he makes this personal mission to try and embarrass them and shame them as much as he can. If they dare question him. That's the thing. He always acts like he's the smartest guy in the room. Like, buddy, nobody's trying to... I mean, if you were canceled, trust me, the Packers would not be paying you more than any player that that has ever played in the NFL in terms of average annual salary. No player has ever made $50 million a year, except you. That's not canceling. Hate to tell you, buddy, that's not canceling. You're on every State Farm commercial. You're on TV every Sunday. You're on an increasingly popular sports show every week for an hour. You're doing 30-minute interviews with the worldwide leader in sports, ESPN. I see you a lot for somebody that got canceled, okay? I can think of a lot of people who have been, if you want to call them victims of the cancel culture, and you don't see them for a long time. I see Aaron just about every week. I'm just saying. Man, this guy's sensitive. John comments on the show, Fan Perspective Podcast. He says, happy Monday. I appreciate you, John. He says this is a family show. Yeah, my bad. Detroit Lions Syndicate. Shout out to Detroit Lions Syndicate. I saw they commented on one of my shows recently. Appreciate y'all. Obviously, not a shocker at all. They're not fans of Aaron, being that they've been in the division with him. They say, yep, ego. And Barry says, I'm sure he doesn't even know what material is in the shirt he has on his back. I love Aaron, but he's a real piece of ... Yeah. This is, when I saw this, when he, again, admitted to, he didn't have to admit to it. I already knew that he intentionally misled the media. Aaron Rodgers is a very, very smart guy. The problem is he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. That's the issue. So this is not shocking to me in the slightest. Yeah, it's just, and going back off of Barry's comment, he said, but he's a real piece of ... And John said work. Yeah, work is the best family-friendly term that we can say in Carving It Up Live. But Lord have mercy, this guy is something else. All right, let's move from Aaron to the guy who actually beat him in a playoff game. A guy who is not even in the same league as Aaron Rodgers when it comes to talent, when it comes to accomplishments, really when it comes to anything outside of he's better looking than Aaron. And that's Jimmy Garoppolo. Really strange news came in now about little less than an hour ago from Adam Schefter. Schefter tweeted, quote, Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers agreed to a restructured one-year contract that will keep the quarterback in San Francisco this season, per sources. The contract contains no trade and no tag clauses, assuring Garoppolo will remain in San Francisco this season and have the freedom to leave in 2023. So, long story short, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a San Francisco 49er this season. So this is interesting. Either the 49ers couldn't find a trade partner for Jimmy Garoppolo, because we know the teams that were mentioned. The Giants were mentioned. We understand, Daniel Jones, let's be honest, folks. I get he's got a terrible offensive line. The defense has been fine since he's been there. It's not been terrible. But you've got a receiving core that's not great. He does have Saquon Barkley. I've seen quarterbacks have absolutely nothing and at least get their team to the playoffs, i.e. Andrew Luck did it three straight years from his rookie year to his third year. Okay. And we have yet to see from Daniel Jones like that. Wow. Okay. There may be a little something this kid. We're like, get this kid the right coach. And no. So that's why the Giants have been in the discussion to possibly acquire Jimmy Garoppolo. The Seattle Seahawks, who we saw just named Geno Smith their starter for week 1 after Drew Lock threw 3 interceptions, right? You would take Jimmy Garoppolo easily over Drew Lock and over Geno Smith. Okay. Divisional trades are very rare, but that was in the cards. There are plenty of other teams that discussed, there was even discussions about possibly, does he get traded to Tampa to back up Tom? which I still think, him possibly, which would be such an irony considering that Brady basically forced him out of New England in 2017 because Belichick wanted to replace Brady with Garoppolo, and the fact that Garoppolo could replace Tom in Tampa Bay. Okay, so you have that all that you had that whole situation. John says, "Told y'all I'm not the Trey Lance believer yet," and I do think to a certain degree, and you guys know, unlike John, I am a Trey Lance believer. This has a little tiny bit to do with Trey Lance. He is now the best insurance plan in the NFL. To where, and this could work to Trey Lance's detriment, although he has a Super Bowl ready roster. I know that because Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback on that team, and they got to the NFC Championship game. As a matter of fact, they had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game before the Rams came back and won with 13 unanswered points. But the Niners, we understand, if Trey Lance struggles out the gate, again, this is a Super Bowl roster. You've heard me talk ad nauseum about how loaded this roster is. The great coaching staff. Some of the great in-season trades they've made, making little-known players work for them. If Trey Lance can't bring them to that next level that they are hoping he can, well, you've just got a guy who's helped you get to a Super Bowl and get to an NFC Championship game in the building. So, again, I have a hard time believing that this has nothing to do with Trey Lance. And I'm a Trey Lance believer. I think I said in the 2021 draft, I said, I don't think he's the best quarterback in the draft, but because of where he landed and where you land matters, that he would have the best career of the first round franchise, or not necessarily franchise quarterbacks, but of the first round quarterbacks taken in the 2021 NFL draft. Because he's going to Kyle Shanahan, who, folks, Matt Schaub, nice player, starter. Matt Schaub was a Pro Bowler with the Houston Texans with Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator there. That is in an AFC that had Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, Rivers, some Hall of Famers, and Matt Schaub made a Pro Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo got to the Super Bowl. Guys, Matt Ryan, who we've all thought is a very good quarterback, but not like Hall of Fame level, not MVP level. Matt Ryan won an MVP with Kyle Shanahan as his offensive coordinator. So my thing was, okay, this kid with the upside he has goes to Kyle Shanahan. As if that's not great enough. He's got maybe the best offensive line in football, without question, the greatest left tackle in football right now, Trent Williams, who is ranked by the NFL players as the highest ranked offensive lineman ever ranked in the top 100. I think he was like 11 or 12th. He's a great player. Okay. You've got an excellent running game with Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon. You've got the best all-around offensive player in football in Deebo Samuel. You've got the best tight end in the conference, George Kittle. You've got Brandon Ayuk, first-round talent. You've got guys like Juwan Jennings, who's an excellent receiver. And then defensively, your defense forces turnovers, and they pin the opposition back on their own end of the field. We've got an elite pass rush led by Nick Bosa. They've got Fred Warner, who might be the best linebacker in football. Yes, it's a tough division, but Seattle's probably tanking. Arizona has a lot of questions regarding Kyler Murray, regarding some of the guys that they lost this offseason, regarding DeAndre Hopkins being suspended the first 6 games of the season. Arizona has a lot of questions. Yes, you've got the Rams, but a year ago, you beat the Rams twice and had them on the ropes, and that team won the Super Bowl. And you gave them absolute fits. So this is a Super Bowl contender. And as I said on the show, and I've showed Jimmy Garoppolo's playoff stats, I don't know if I still have them. Yes, I do. I still have them. If Trey Lance is above average, if he's average in the playoffs, the Niners probably get to the Super Bowl. Again, Jimmy G's career playoff numbers with the 49ers, 160 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, completion percentage, fine, but not great, 61%, and a below average passer rating of 74.1. But he has a 4-2 record. But when you look at his pass attempts as opposed to rush attempts in those wins, it's I mean, that NFC Championship game against the Packers a few years ago, he threw like 8 passes or something crazy. So he was just a cog in the system. Jimmy G, make no mistake about it, was not leading the 49ers to the Super Bowl or to the NFC Championship game. That game against, when people say, you know, I just got done bashing Aaron Rodgers, but when they say, you know, Jimmy G outdueled Aaron Rodgers or outplayed Aaron Rodgers, Rodgers was bad. He was bad in that game. Packers scored 10 points. Jimmy G was awful. He threw a terrible red zone interception, no touchdowns. Yes, he had a good last drive, but the offense scored 6 points. The special team scored more points than the offense. The special team scored the only touchdown in the game on the blocked punt. So the Niners were winning with Jimmy G, not because of Jimmy G. But again, he's now, this year, the best insurance plan in the NFL if Trey Lance doesn't pan out. Because if Zach Wilson doesn't pan out with the Jets in year 2, Joe Flacco, really? Remember that debate 10 years ago if Joe Flacco's elite? You know, even if he was at the time, he darn sure ain't elite now. Okay, Mac Jones, you see that interception he threw in that preseason game against the Raiders? Man, that looked bad. Anyways, your backup plan is what? Brian Hoyer? If Trevor Lawrence doesn't pan out, I don't even know who Jacksonville's backup is. Okay, if Justin Fields doesn't pan out, I don't even know who Chicago's backup is. Trey Lance's backup is Jimmy G, who I believe is a starter in the NFL. I believe he's one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league. So it's interesting. It, to me, feels like the 49ers, A, aren't that sold on Jimmy G, and B, I'm sorry, they're not that sold on Trey Lance, or B, this could be something that hangs over the 49ers this season. Because you know, Trey Lance has a bad game against the Cardinals or against the Rams or somebody. You may hear some Jimmy G chants. Jimmy G, Jimmy G. You may have some posters, you know, at Levi Stadium. It'll be a conversation without question in the media. I'm sure I'll be talking about on this show if Trey Lance struggles. So it's interesting. I mean, the good news for Jimmy G, though, is he gets to be a free agent. And now he was going to be a free agent anyway this offseason. But if he's kept under bubble wrap, if he doesn't play this year, or if he does play well with a loaded roster, you know, he could get some money this coming offseason. He played his cards a heck of a lot better than Baker Mayfield played his, though. That I do know for sure. Because unless Baker takes what isn't a very good Carolina Panthers team to the playoffs, and he's the reason they get there, Baker's going to be backup quarterback next year, or a starter on a bad team again. So we'll see what happens with that whole situation. But I don't know, man. I thought it was weird. I thought it was really, really weird. But yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm about to get into this John Morant and Zion Williamson topic because I think it's an interesting one. Because they were suggesting. Oh shoot! I just lost my notes. They were suggesting on StatMuse, which is probably my number one source that I get stats or comparisons between two players. It's a great source. Y'all got to check it out. There's an app and everything. Of course, there's an app for everything. But you know, they were saying, you know, who would you take right now? Would you take John Morant? Would you take Zion Williamson? And of course, the replies to that tweet was overwhelming. Oh, you got to take Ja. You got to take Ja, right? He had a great season last year. And do I think Ja's better? Yeah. Not by much, though. This notion that the Pelicans made, like, oh, this awful mistake taking Zion Williamson over John Morant is ludicrous. Because when you look at their first 3 years of their career, there's a lot of similarities there. What we know about them as players is this. They are both wildly athletic, so fun to watch, elite scorers. They're on house every game they play. They're on House of Highlights on social media every night. They're as exciting as any player in the NBA. You pay money to go see Zion Williamson play basketball. You go pay money to see Ja Morant play basketball. I mean, it felt like every game last year there was Ja doing something crazy. Like the highlight to me of Ja Morant last season, as many great moments as he had, was that insane chase down block against the Lakers. I think it was on Avery Bradley where he went like halfway up the backboard and pinned the shot. I was like, oh, that's just stupid. I mean, you can't, guys don't do that. It was every night you were seeing something special. You'd seen something from Ja Morant that you don't see from really anybody else. You got some Derrick Rose flashbacks. And I'm praying and hoping that we don't get Derrick Rose flashbacks in a bad way. You guys know what I'm talking about. Injuries. Okay. Ja Morant, since he's come into the NBA, has played less and less and less games. Okay. Ja comes into the NBA. He plays 67 games his first year, 63 games his second year, and 57 his third year. He's dealt with a lot of knee issues, and I pointed this out for like a year or so now on the show. Somebody, I don't know if hopefully they've done it this offseason. Somebody with the Grizzlies, somebody, an independent trainer has got to, even if it's a retired NBA player, has got to teach Ja Morant how to land after dunks, after these high-flying plays. Because every single time he goes up in the air and comes down, I cringe. Because it looks a little out of control. He'll occasionally come down and have all his weight put on one leg. And we know that NBA floor has no give. That thing is rock solid. That thing does not move. That is, I mean, when you take hard falls, like you see guys will, get fouled and come down and they'll kind of stay on the ground for a while. A lot of times it's because they lose their breath. Like they got to kind of get their breath back. Their teammates are kind of slow to get up. All of Ja Morant's weight, and he doesn't weigh a whole lot. I think, what do we give him? 100, 180 pounds, 190 pounds? But all of that is coming down on one leg. Or it's coming down, and he's coming down awkward near, the back of the basket. We know about the Paul George injury. Don't even want to think about that one. But you sort of have flashbacks with that. Ja's injuries and Zion's injuries have come from sort of different sources. Zion's really hasn't taken that great care of his body. And we'll see if that changes. You're hearing some good signs out of New Orleans. Hopefully that's the case. But dude needs to get a personal trainer and take care of his body ASAP, or he's going to throw his NBA career down the toilet. Thankfully for him, he did just sign a massive extension with the New Orleans Pelicans. But if he wants to reach anywhere near what his potential was as the number 1 overall pick 3 years ago, you're going to have to take care of your body. But my thing has always been this. And you guys know I'm really, really obsessed. I think obsessed is an appropriate word to use for the word great and valuable. I never said Nikola Jokic wasn't great. I never said he wasn't arguably the best center in basketball. Matter of fact, I've said numerous times on the show he's the best all-around center since probably Wilt. He was not the MVP. The fact that LeBron has 4, the fact that Steph has 2, Kevin Durant has 1, Michael Jordan, the greatest player ever, has 5 MVPs. He should have 10, maybe 11. When we talk value, nobody ever questioned Ja Morant's greatness. Nobody's questioned what Zion Williamson could do on the floor. Zion Williamson, his last full season, averaged 27 a game on 61% shooting. That hasn't been done since Shaq. Let's just take that into consideration. 61% for the field, scoring 27 points a game, has not been done since the Big Diesel himself. Ja Morant, likewise, averaged 27. But both Zion and Ja Morant are awful defensive players. Terrible. Both are not great three-point shooters. Zion shoots about 29% from 3. Ja shoots about 34% from 3. In a three-point shooting league, that's not going to cut it. And both guys, their teams were better without them. Zion Williamson did not play a single dribble for the New Orleans Pelicans. They made the playoffs and competed with a 64-win Phoenix Suns team without him. Had a chance to win that series. Likewise, Ja Morant. The Grizzlies, what did the Grizzlies go? Like 20-4? How many games he missed? 57. So they went, I think, 20-5 without Ja Morant. They won 80% of their games without him. Wait a second. In the second round against the team that won the NBA championship, the Golden State Warriors, my Golden State Warriors, Ja Morant goes down in game 3, a game which, might I add, the Grizz lost by 30. And in games 4, 5, and 6, which he missed, game 4, the Grizzlies had the lead with a minute left on the road. In game 5, don't remind me, the Grizzlies at one point led by 55 points over the team that won the NBA championship, folks. In game 6, the Grizzlies had a lead in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes to go before Golden State, particularly game 6 Clay, and then Steph came along for the ride, went on a big run and closed the series out. The Grizzlies were more competitive with Golden State in Ja Morant's absence. That is in part because it wasn't a lot of ISO ball, a lot of ball movement, and significantly better defense. Might I add, significantly better shooting, more spacing. Same with Zion Williamson. Because he's not a great three-point shooter, clogged up the paint a little bit for Brandon Ingram. Instead, with Zion out, Brandon is able to create space. We know we've called him a poor man's Kevin Durant. You see a lot of the similarities with the ball handling and the baseline fadeaways and the three-point shooting. More space to work with. Same, CJ McCollum was able to flourish in New Orleans for that reason. So I just think when we say, Ja's a home run over Zion, is he? I think he's better. I think he's proven that he's better. He's been more available than Zion, but there's more similarities between these two guys than we give them credit for. They're both ridiculous talents. By the way, both are still young. Okay, if knock on wood, they both stay healthy because we want to see how great that they can be at their peak. But they've had a lot of injuries. In a three-point shooting league, neither is a good three-point shooter. Both are abysmal defensive players. And in both cases, their teams actually play better when they're off the floor than when they're on it. I think that matters. I don't know. That's always kind of been my thing. Like, I was a Zion guy in 2019 over Ja. I think Ja, again, has proven 3 years in that he is thus far, certainly he's had a better career than Zion has. He's accomplished more. He's been available more, but that doesn't mean he's been that available. Okay. His games played has gone down every year. Okay. So I think that's something to look out for. And John says, it's close, but Ja has been more healthy, so I have to go with him. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like I said, Ja has been more available than Zion has. But as far as their impact, as far as how they are as players, there's a lot of similarities between those two. Obviously, they play different positions. Zion's a wing guy. He's not really much of a wing. He scores the majority of his points down low. And heck, Ja kind of does too. I think Ja, and I don't love this by a guard. I think he was top 10 in scoring in the paint. Not centers, not power forwards. Ja Morant, a 6'2" guard, was top 10 in the NBA in scoring in the paint. And he's not a big guy whatsoever. I mean, that's part of the reason he's had so many injuries is because he's not this big strapping guard like, say, like a Russell Westbrook or a John Wall. No, he's kind of a skinny dude. And so when he's going amongst the trees, amongst the 260, 270 pounders, 7 foot guys, that's part of the reason for a lot of these injuries. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think there's more similarities than we give them credit for. But hey, we talk about the NFL season is fast approaching, as is, by the way, playoff baseball. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about my Red Sox right now. Yeah, they just won a series over the Tampa Bay Rays, but it's kind of irrelevant at this point. We should have sold if the deadline said that at the time. That's neither here nor there. But the MLB postseason is coming up soon. I've said for a while in the American League, it was Houston and the Yankees separating from everybody else. The Yankees have kind of got back on track ever since, after they went on that really bad skid. I'm not so sure it's not just two teams out of the AL West, Houston and Seattle. Obviously, we saw Seattle just sign Julio Rodriguez to that huge deal. Seattle's a problem, man. You do not want to draw, even if you're Houston, who's going to be the number 1 seed in the American League in the playoffs in a month and a half. You do not want to draw the Seattle Mariners. Okay, the great pitching, explosive offense in the National League. Listen, the team I picked to win it all this year, the LA Dodgers, huge blow that they got about 2 weeks ago with the loss of Walker Buehler, not just for this year, but next year due to a second Tommy John surgery. Despite that, the Dodgers keep on winning, man. 88 wins, leading all of Major League Baseball. Listen, the Mets are a problem. The Mets are without a shadow of a doubt the biggest threat to the Dodgers. You can make the case they're better than the Dodgers. They're certainly healthier. But I'm going with LA. I'm still going with LA to win the American League. I'm sorry, to win the National League. I'm still going with Houston win the American League because I want to see a rematch of 2017. I think the whole world will be rooting for the Los Angeles Dodgers to get even with what happened in 2017. John just says Bueller. Yeah, he's had his issues with his arm with Tommy John surgery. So hopefully he's able to heal up. Again, he's obviously going to miss the rest of this year. He's most likely going to miss all of 2023. So it's going to be a minute before he gets back. Okay. Barry Grant Jr., diehard Mets fan, All Even podcast. He says, "Oh," in all caps, "Oh, look who comes around to my team. You won't get your rematch." I don't know what you're talking about coming around. I've said all year, I didn't pick the Mets to go to the playoffs. Duh, I was wrong. But I've always said, okay, they've absolutely got the starting pitching advantage over the Dodgers. The Dodgers have a better offense without a question. Mookie Betts is en fuego right now. He just had a game the other night. He was 4 for 6. I feel like he's hitting a home run every other game. I know that obviously the Mets got Pete Alonso, who's former home run derby champion and is some crack at bat the other day. He's a freak of nature. You got Lindor. You've got McNeil. I mean, you've got a list of guys. Okay, the Mets might be better than the Dodgers. I'm not discounting that for a second. They, without question, I think have the managerial advantage. I don't think that's even a shadow of a doubt. I'm taking Buck Showalter over Dave Roberts, and I'm a Red Sox fan. I will always love Dave Roberts for what he did to help break the curse for the Red Sox. Really, he was sort of the catalyst that started to help the Red Sox break the curse in 2004 with the incredible, obviously I don't remember, I was 1, but the incredible comeback against the New York Yankees, the only baseball team to ever come back down 3-0 in a best-of-7 series. John commented, "Barry, is that sweet? That's a broom." Yeah, I was zooming in there to see if that was broom emojis. No, nobody's sweeping anybody. Okay, Mets aren't sweeping the Dodgers. The Dodgers are not sweeping the Mets. Okay, let's get that out of let's get that mess out of here. Okay, it will be a great series though. I think if we get a Dodgers Astros World Series, I think that will top it. But man, the Mets, remember the Mets and Dodgers played in 2015 in the divisional series. That was the year the Mets won the pennant, got to the World Series, and lost to Kansas City. But that Game 5 was, I remember watching that. That was, heart-stopping. I remember the great Ernie Johnson was on the call for that one in Dodger Stadium when the Mets came into L.A. and won that game over the Dodgers. And what ended up being the final game for Mattingly there as the manager. Barry says he's referring to his crankies beating us up, LOL. And John just says, no, Barry knows what I'm talking about. Listen, I will say this to both of you, to John, to Barry, to whoever is watching or listening. We appreciate y'all. The Mets are head and shoulders better than the New York Yankees. And that is not just me saying that because the Mets are an ally of Red Sox Nation. I'll never forget, and I know this can't be the first time this has ever happened, but I'll never forget the year my Red Sox won the World Series in 2018. And they played the Mets at Fenway. It was a 3-game weekend series. And in the last game of that series, it was Boston was up. They were up probably 6-7 runs. I mean, the game was pretty much out of reach. It was probably 7th, 8th inning. and there hadn't been any scoring in about three innings or so. And I remember the fan base, and there were a lot of Mets fans in attendance, started chanting, "Yankees suck, Yankees suck." I'm like, see, that's where we're always going to unite there. That's why, the the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That is the Red Sox and Mets are the epitome of that. And Jonathan seems to be just shocked in the comments here that I give the Mets the advantage over, as Barry called them, the Crankies. Just don't forget, you guys haven't won a World Series in 13 years, which, I mean, you could say the same thing about the Mets, but the Mets have been more relevant in the last decade than the Yankees have been. They've been in the World Series more often than the Yankees have been. And just never forget, Yankees fans, you guys talk about 27, 27, 27. It's fine. Listen, the 20th century belonged to the New York Yankees. The 21st century belongs to the Boston Red Sox because we got the most championships in the 21st century. Heck, the San Francisco Giants have more championships in the 21st century than the Yankees do. So, know your place. I hope you enjoyed the 20th century. Because 21st century, it's Red Sox in Major League Baseball. And hey, might be the Mets from here on out. Given the new ownership, given Buck Showalter, I know he's getting up there in age, so I don't know how long he'll be there. And given how much better run the Mets are significantly. And John just says, no way, we've got a better record in the last 10 years than the Mets. Well, I would almost, though, Johns, and I would compare it to the Lakers and the Clippers. Okay? The Clippers have been significantly better than the Lakers in the last decade. By a mile. I think they've won like 32 of the last 39 games. But the Lakers have a championship in that span. And we all know, folks, it's a Laker town. Clippers are way better run than the Lakers. Ain't even close. They're a better basketball team, better coach, better general manager, better ownership. Heck, they're about to have a better arena pretty soon. But the Lakers, for as poorly run as they've been, they got a finals appearance and they got a championship. Okay, now the Mets haven't won a World Series. They had their opportunity in 2015. They could have their opportunity again in 2022, but they have had more postseason success, at least when it counts, than the Yankees have. And anytime the Yankees have tried to make any run in the postseason, they've either run into the Houston Cheatstros or my Red Sox. And we ended their season in 2018, and we did it last year in the wild card game. So, okay, I should probably cut off the talk about Mets, Yankees, and throwing in my Red Sox fandom in there. But all of that to say, wrap it up. I am pumped, as pumped can possibly be, for the postseason this October, even though my Sox will not be in it. Again, I feel like it's now Astros, Mariners as the two best team in the American League, and the National League, it is not even close. Okay, if you like Atlanta, cool. You like St. Louis, it's fine. San Diego, okay. It's not even close. Dodgers and the Mets have clearly separated themselves from the rest of the National League. I don't care if the Braves win the National League East. I don't care if the Braves win the National League East. Doesn't matter. Mets are better. And I like Brian Snitker, the manager of the Braves. They got a great pitching staff, and their offense has been excellent. Dansby Swanson is having a fantastic season. No, I'm taking the Mets. If they match up, I think it's a 5-game series. Obviously, if it's the divisional series, I think it's a 5-game series. But I'm taking the Mets any day of the week. So just making sure we don't have any more news before we get to my predictions for my Vols. A little bit of drama. I will say this in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson liking a picture on Twitter of him being photoshopped in a Miami Dolphins uniform. And you guys have heard me talk a lot, and it's been a big story about his contract situation, what he's asking from the Baltimore Ravens. And, of course, the biggest development is that he pretty much put a cutoff date, said, hey, if we don't have a contract agreed to by September 11th, which is the opening of the NFL season, all right, I'm going to play this year on the last year of my rookie deal, the team option, and we'll go from there. We'll see if we can't get something done this coming March. But interesting because Lamar is, if I'm not mistaken, Lamar is a Miami kid. I think. I could be wrong, but I think Lamar is from Miami. So that's something to keep your eye on for sure. Now, as I said at the beginning of today's show, every 99% of the segments I do in the show is stuff that y'all care about, stuff that's talked about in the national media, stuff that's talked about significantly on social media in the world of sports, whether it be Instagram, more specifically Twitter. Things we discuss, things we debate, NFL, NBA. We just talk Major League Baseball, college football, college basketball, especially during March Madness, the whole bit. But there's always one segment a year that I do that there's a very good chance that unless you live in my state, unless you live in a 2-hour radius of where I live, you probably could care less about the segment that I'm going to do. But the show is called Carving It Up with Bryson Carver. So it's my show. So I get to do one segment a year that you guys probably don't care about that much. And that is that I'm going to predict my Tennessee Vols football record this season in 2022. Of course, for the streaming audience, you see I've got my Tennessee shirt on, the smoky gray, which I saw Tennessee is going to bring back the smoky gray, different iterations of it moving forward. They've already got the black jerseys with the white helmets, which are just clean. I love those. Of course, with the traditional, the classic orange and white uniforms, home and away. But in an SEC that is about as loaded as ever, in an SEC East that has an unlikely challenger, not a serious challenger, but an unlikely challenger to the now defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs, my Tennessee Vols could be due for a good year with second-year coach Josh Heupel, and with I think he's a senior now, senior quarterback Hendon Hooker. Before I get into my predictions, Barry says, "What are the ramifications if you are wrong?" LOL. And Barry is a USC fan, by the way. We've got a bet on that. More on that probably around December. Actually, yeah, it will be December because that's when. Well, I won't tell y'all. You guys will know the results of the bet once the time comes. But what are the ramifications if you're wrong? I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I'll go and tell you right at the bat. I'm not going to go, psycho here and say my Vols are going to win the SEC or something, or that they're going to go to the college football playoff. I'm not going to go crazy now. But I don't know. Maybe we can do an off-camera bet on that too, Barry. We've got the USC bet. We had our Dak Prescott bet that I lost. It was bad, and I don't ever want to do it again. John says, let's go Irish. John's a big Notre Dame fan. I really like Notre Dame's new head coach. I think if you're going to get a replacement for Brian Kelly, I think that guy is the guy to do it. I did feel like Notre Dame was ranked a touch high in the AP top 25 rankings. But speaking of which, my Vols were, in a surprise to some, were not ranked in the top 25. I feel like they're around 24, 25. But let's stop messing around. Let's go and get the background music going right now to predict my Tennessee Volunteers record in 2022. Starting with, let's pull up the schedule. Here we go. Vols schedule. Okay, so they start this Thursday evening against Ball State. I don't think that's much of a contest whatsoever. My Vols, as it stands right now, Vegas has the Tennessee Volunteers as a minus 34.5 favorite to beat Ball State. That won't even be a contest game. Actually, it's now went up to minus 35. So basically a 5-touchdown a difference in how they favor Tennessee in that week 1 game against Ball State. My Vols will win easily. One of the early season tests, my Vols will go on the road to Kenny Pickett's old school, the University of Pittsburgh. Now, when we know that the Slovis kid from USC, who was going to be the starter with Lincoln Riley, that changed when Caleb Williams transferred from USC to come alongside, transferred from Oklahoma to join Lincoln Riley at USC. So Slovis transferred to Pittsburgh. Heck of a replacement for Kenny Pickett, who of course was drafted the first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. As it stands right now, Pittsburgh is ranked 17th in the country. A deserved ranking in my view. They have an excellent defense and significantly better skill position players than they've had in recent years. Great player at the quarterback position, Slovis. However, My Vols have Hendon Hooker. My Vols have an improved defense this season. A receiving core that is much, much better from a year ago. They got this kid that just transferred from USC coming to Tennessee, who is just cleared from for eligibility. I think Brew McCoy is his name. So I think, like Pittsburgh went on the road to Neyland Stadium and beat my Vols in an afternoon game in Knoxville, Tennessee, I think my Vols get even, go to Pittsburgh, and beat Pitt to go to 2-0. They will take care of Akron easily in week 3 to go to 3-0. This is a big one. Home game against the hated University of Florida Gators. Don't remind me as a Tennessee fan, Florida has beaten Tennessee 16 out of the last 17 games. Tennessee's lone win coming in 2016. I remember that game like it was yesterday, and that maybe sound kind of sad considering our recent failures against Florida. But the thing for Florida is, new coach. I said they should have never fired Dan Mullen. That was a boneheaded decision by the Florida the athletic program. Dan Mullen is a brilliant offensive coach, was great with Tim Tebow, helped develop my man Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, was working with almost nothing at the quarterback position. His best quarterback was Kyle Trask, folks. Okay, and they moved on from Dan Mullen. New coach coming in, new system. Florida, this is considered a rebuilding year. They're projected to win about 6 or 7 games-ish. I'm going to take my Vols. Listen, if there's a year to beat Florida, if there's a year to look a little less bad when it comes to the 21st century against the Gators, September 24th in Neyland Stadium is your best opportunity. Okay, so I think my Vols will come through, beat Florida, and go to 4-0. They will suffer their first loss the following game against LSU after a bye week. Okay, Brian Kelly is coming into Baton Rouge. We understand the success he had at Notre Dame, a national championship game appearance, which was, of course, followed by a devastating loss at the University of Alabama, again, a game that was over at halftime, a couple of college football playoff appearances. We understand what Brian Kelly brings to the table other than his fake Southern accent. But you get excellent play at the quarterback position. Baton Rouge, Death Valley is one of the most difficult places to win in all of college football. I don't think my Vols are quite ready for that type of test yet. And so I think they will lose at LSU, and they will lose their second straight game against the University of Alabama. In the series against Alabama, Tennessee has not beaten the Crimson Tide since I was 3, back in 2006. So, and it's really funny, too. Tennessee has tended to really, really struggle against Alabama at home. For whatever reason, including last year, my Vols play nip and tuck against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You can look at 2009. You can look at 2015. Tennessee actually had a lead with 5 minutes to go at Alabama until Derrick Henry did Derrick Henry things. Okay, 2019, they had the Vols on the ropes until future Cowboy Trayvon Diggs took a fumble recovery 100 yards to the house. You can look at the final score from a year ago. I think Bama won by 3 or 4 touchdowns, but that was a 7-point game with 10 minutes to go. So my Vols have always played Alabama close in Tuscaloosa. For whatever reason, at Neyland Stadium, they tend to really struggle. I don't know if it's sort of like a Boston Celtics thing, like under the pressure of the home crowd to break the streak. I don't know what it is, but my Vols are not beating Alabama this season. Nick Saban said last year was a rebuilding year. Bryce Young coming off of a Heisman Trophy winning season. Alabama wins this game. My Vols fall to 4-2. They will get back on track with a home win against UT Martin. And then what I believe to me is the biggest game of the season for my Vols against the University of Kentucky. Will Levis, who is the quarterback for Kentucky, is projected to be a first-round pick next year. He's up there with C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, Bryce Young from Alabama, who I just mentioned. This kid is absolutely phenomenal. I love what this guy brings to the table, okay? He's everything you read about Mel Kiper, or not about Mel Kiper, what Mel Kiper writes about this kid is right on the money. Okay, arm strength, mobility, they like what he brings to the table in Kentucky, and they should. My Vols won in Lexington a year ago in what was kind of a shootout. My Vols broke a couple of 75-yard runs on some screen passes. It was a crazy, crazy game. It was Big 12 type stuff. I think there's a potential to be a night game. We know Neyland Stadium tends to get pretty rowdy, as most stadiums do at night, for numerous reasons that we won't get into today. However, I think we get a repeat of a year ago. Not just in that it was an absolute shootout. It was a Big 12 type game. But I think my Vols come out on top. They come out on top against the University of Kentucky, and they go to 6-2. They will lose badly at the defending national champions' house at the University of Georgia. That we don't even need to talk about that. Okay, Georgia's the national champions. I think they're going to be back in the college football playoff this season. They will come back home to play Missouri. Missouri is in a complete rebuild. They will beat the Tigers. And then finishing 2 road games at South Carolina is not going to be easy. Shane Beamer, the son of the great Frank Beamer, who was the legendary head coach at Virginia Tech. Shane Beamer has done an excellent job at kind of lifting the South Carolina program from the ashes, bringing them back to at least a little bit of relevance. I know that'll make my man Grady Edwards happy, but I think my Vols go to South Carolina and win that game, and then they come their in-state rivalry. It's not much of a rivalry because it's been pretty one-sided at Vanderbilt, and they will beat the Commodores soundly. So, when you look at my predictions, put it up there. I think my Vols are in for a 9-3 season, folks. 9-3. My Tennessee Vols go this season in 2022. You know, I said when Josh Heupel was hired by Tennessee after the firing of Jeremy Pruitt, who God is my witness, this show, frankly, is my witness. Y'all are my witness, I should say. I was never high on the Jeremy Pruitt hiring. And we understand the trouble that he's in with the NCAA. Heck, the trouble that Tennessee is still in trouble with the NCAA. But I feel like with Josh Heupel coming in, young, progressive, offensive mind, being able to develop a guy like Hendon Hooker, who himself is a transfer. I believe he came in from Virginia Tech. Right, being able to come in, he's a former college quarterback, Josh Heupel is. So to sort of develop this new offensive identity at Tennessee, which is a program that is, the offensive coaches they've hired have been abysmal. Guys like Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, and the defensive coaches they've hired have, in at least post Philip Fulmer, have either been rental guys, Lane Kiffin, or an absolute abject failure, Jeremy Pruitt. So I said when he was hired a year ago, you can check my Twitter from that time, he's a transitional coach, and hopefully he can get Tennessee back to a level of relevance that then a new coach, a more established coach, can come in and sort of take them back to hopefully that next level that we experienced in the very first national championship game in 1998, led by T. Martin and, of course, the great head coach, Philip Fulmer, over Florida State. But year one, albeit it was a 7-6 year, it was a heartbreaking bowl game loss against Purdue. But I think my Vols are in for an exciting season. The only concerns I have a little bit are the defense. For those of you that don't know, Tennessee plays sort of Chip Kelly-style hurry-up offense. So the defense is on the field 35 minutes of the game. So, and they, for that reason, they tend to give up a lot of points, despite having excellent talent in the interior defensive line and in the secondary. So if they can, force some turnovers, set up the offense in good field position, especially in the red zone, be able to capitalize, that's going to be huge for my Vols. And more than anything, my only concern about my man Hendon Hooker, and I said it a year ago, the guy's got to work on his deep ball. He has a bad Mitchell Trubisky tendency to overthrow wide open guys on deep balls on the outside down the sideline. So if he can clean that up, Hendon Hooker may be a second-round draft pick next year. Who knows? But certainly he has played excellent in that Josh Heupel system. And 9-3, that's what I got for my Vols. Let's put it up one more time. Only 3 losses to me come at LSU, against Alabama, and at the defending national champions' house. So take care. Again, the toughest win, I believe, is going to be at home against Kentucky, in part because, again, Will Levis is an excellent first-round talent at the quarterback position. But, hey, my Vols, Hendon Hooker outdueled him a year ago in Lexington. Who's to say he can't do it in his house in Knoxville? So, the one segment I do a year that most of you probably don't care about, my Vols in 2022 go 9-3. And hopefully, due to that record, due to the fact they play in, without a question, obviously the best conference in college football, heck, the best conference in Division I sports, the SEC, maybe we get a good bowl game. Maybe the Sugar Bowl. Who knows? But I'm excited for my Vols this year. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to check out Carving It Up Live on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Also, Be sure to check out the Carving It Up podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure also on YouTube, like, share, comment, and most importantly, hit that big red subscribe button. We've been building our subscriber total over the past month, 2 months or so. We want to continue to build it. So if you haven't already, hit that big subscribe button. Takes you, 2 seconds? I mean, you could just scroll down right there. Like scroll down. If you're on your computer, hit the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, watching on your phone, hit the subscribe button right below where I'm, running by my big mouth right now. There you go. See, you just subscribed. It was that easy. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Go Big Orange. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.